Welcome to Tea Time with Bunky. This is message. Hi, Dan. All right.
Welcome to Tea Time with
Welcome to Tea Time with Bunky.
This is super recent.
Welcome to Tea Time with Bunky. I missed you guys. I really did. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Tea Time with Bunky. Welcome to Tea Time with Bunky. Before we get into the show, I would like to first, trying to get all my stuff together. Welcome all my Tea Time with Bunky followers and subscribers. Everyone who's been there from the beginning, I appreciate you so very much. All my new followers, people that are just, learn about Tea Time with Bunky, welcome, enjoy the journey. Tea Time with Bunky is a place where enlightened discussions, empowering stories, and dialogues you have been longing to hear. So dive deep and be a part of the conversation that resonates with the community and the world. Tea Time with Bunky, you can catch me every Thursday night on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Tea Time with Bunky and Instagram, Miss Kanitha. You can catch the re-air. 7 p.m. You can catch the re-air on Zeno FM. There's an app, the VGN. Shout out to the Village Global Network. We're Thursday morning, so next Thursday you can catch this political show, Lord. Next Thursday you can catch this show at 8 a.m. in Culture Shock Radio, Rockbox Radio, Radio Facetto, New Mexico, WAP the Music FM in Guadalupe, the Caribbean island, and on Sundays at 12 p.m. on Confidence Radio, airing in 191 plus countries every week. So this week, Lord, before I get into that, I would like to, on the April 1st, I'm so confused. This show got me jacked. April 1st, I'm getting ready to start something new. I am going to start bettering myself. If you want to know what that means, Bunk, what does that mean? I had two guests on that had like self-improvement books that came out. One was Marie Jefferson's Table for One, Please, A Girl's Guide to Dating Herself, which you can find on Amazon. She is a MA it's clinical. You can't see it, but it's a self-improvement like journal where you write in and interact with yourself. That's learning how to date yourself, ladies. Amazon, get that on Amazon. And simultaneously, my guest, Karen Fairweather, Amazon, one of the Amazon bestsellers, Life Rediscovered, Your 90-Day Personal Transformation Journey, Positive Affirmation. She's the affirmation whisperer. So I will be working on this. So every day I'm going to schedule a time and I'm going to focus on me and get myself together, because ladies, we need that. Men, you need that too. So that book isn't just for women, it's also for men. Amazon, tune in. So tonight, Lord God, beyond the ballot election 2024, the pulse of the nation. So we're going to be talking politics, all that with Barb Schmitt, Sullivan County. She is the person that knows all this crazy stuff. Here we go. Barbara, welcome. Look, I need some water already. Welcome to Tea Time with Bunky again. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me again. And thank you for being this great resource for people. It's just amazing how many people you reach with so many uplifting and important stories. So, and that dating yourself, what a great idea. Everybody needs to just love themselves a little bit more.
Yes.
Because that's how other people will love you, when you love yourself and you're more lovable.
Yes. And more lovable. Politics, loving yourself. All of this stuff is like a rabbit hole.
A rabbit hole.
Crazy. So first, before we get into this, tell everybody a little bit about you so they understand why I chose you to be on here to have this conversation.
I think the political process is very important. And I know it sounds corny to say that you love democracy, but I do love democracy. And, I don't know if I was the best social studies student in high school, but
Socialist.
after high school, I started to really get it, like understand, like, okay, this is how the process works. Everybody has a vote. That right to vote is precious. And
Yes.
there's people who are like greedy and want to hang on to power, and they feel like maybe if you don't think the same way they think, they just want to take away your vote to make sure they can keep their hands in that pot in your pocket.
Right. So how
So,
are you connected to the county? Because you're from Sullivan County. You're from my county. So you're from
right?
Sullivan
Yeah,
County.
we're practically neighbors. If I was ambitious, I could walk to your house. So locally, some of the hats that I wear. So I've been a Planned Parenthood activist for a number of years. I'm on the Sullivan County Democratic Committee where I serve as the treasurer. In the town of Fallsburg, I have a committee seat in Mountaindale, and I'm also the treasurer of the town of Fallsburg Democratic Committee. Another thing that I'm proud of in this county, I'm a board member of the DRC, that's the Dispute Resolution Center. So they're involved in all kinds of mediation services between adults. And they also do a lot of mediation to protect the rights of children, to make sure that if a child's adults are in court, that there's somebody who's advocating for the child. So the child isn't overlooked if the parents get involved in some crazy tug of war where they're using the kid as a pawn.
Which is very
So
important.
those are some of the things that I do.
Okay. So let's jump into it. We're going to talk of local, we're going to talk state, and we're going to talk federal. You know what? You know what I want to do? Let's go and let's flip it. Okay. Because we're going to dive more into our local, the importance of the
Okay.
local. So we're going to flip it. We're going to hit federal. No, we're going to talk. Yes, we're going to talk presidential first. We're going to go backwards. Even though presidential is important, but I don't want to focus on this because that gives me anxiety. So I figured let's work backwards because I'm stressed. I'm feeling my anxiety. So do you want to let's go backwards?
So here's how my mind works. I believe in the thinking.
Okay.
Think globally, act locally.
Oh, so it worked.
So if people do that, then it all ties together. Because I know last year I was trying to talk to people about some of the local races, and there were races last year that were really granularly local, like,
Yes.
Electing your clerk, electing your supervisor, electing your legislators. And I had some people tell me, oh, I don't vote unless it's a presidential year. So that is just tragic to me.
It is. And like I said, we're going to go to that one first, last, local, because the importance of it, how that affects us, really affects us, our local. But presidential is this year. Presidential is this year. We're not naming names because I can't. I'm going to have an aneurysm.
Right. And there's certain names I don't even like to say.
I don't even want to entertain you. But people, they don't realize how in my mind's eye, this is my opinion, y'all, don't come for me, how dangerous this election kind of is.
It is. This is like for all the marbles. And, maybe I've been thinking that for years. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember when George W. Bush was running for election, and we had like a little funny sign in the office that said, "Friends don't let friends vote Republican," because I thought, oh, this is the most serious, election of all time. Maybe I was, not realizing how bad it could come if all the guardrails come down.
And I don't
because our founding pardon?
I don't think anybody realized what 2024 presidential election will look like. You can't make this stuff up. You really
No,
can't.
because if somebody tells you they want to be a dictator for one day, That's like not even a safe place to be. If somebody wants to be a dictator for one day, that means you could lose all your rights. So we can't have that.
No.
Anybody who says they want to be dictator for a day, not good. If somebody says, I want to represent everybody, then that's who I'm interested. The person who wants to represent everybody, whether they vote for him or not.
Now,
So,
look, this is wait. This is
Yep.
what I have to like put across there, because like people that know me know I'm registered Democrat, so that I can participate in the primaries. People don't get that, like. But for the most part, I mean, I'm registered what I am, but I will vote for whoever speaks to me, meaning what their policies are, everything like. So if I'm a Democrat, but the not this one, is a Republican, and he's saying all the right things, and then you look into his background and everything is the right, but he couldn't get on that Democratic ticket, I'm gonna vote for him. Why? Because he's better for me, so I don't go. I have friends that are independent, Republican, Democratic, don't affiliate with anything at all. So I'm like, that's just, so I don't want to go against.
Yeah. And people who know me know my story, which is I was a registered Republican for like 40 years. And that's because when I was in college and there was a guy on campus getting everybody to register, he talked me into like, you should pick a party, and the whole thing. Why? Well, because of the primary. And I was like, okay, which is the good party? And he smiled, because like that was the most naive question, which is the good party.
Yeah,
So I eeny, meeny, mighty, moed it, and I became a Republican. And I was a registered Republican for like all those years. But like you said, I would go with the candidate who most represented my opinions.
Right.
And somewhere during the Reagan era, they started making it like, okay, here are the people who were pro-choice, and here are the people who are against pro-choice, and somehow that's how we had to get rounded up. And so as soon as I started seeing presidents leaning into restricting a person's reproductive autonomy, that's when I understood, like almost every single presidential race, I was voting for the Democrat, even though I was a registered Republican, because I understood how dangerous it could be to have our reproductive rights taken away.
But what's crazy, and a lot of people didn't know, like I've had conversations with people in the past, and they didn't know that most African Americans were Republican. Because the Republican Party back in the day, the Republican Party best fit our needs and what's better for, what we need, housing, education, all that stuff like that, economics. But, it's dangerous.
Well, so here's what I understand about the history of that many years ago, you could be in the party of Abraham Lincoln because Abraham Lincoln wanted slavery abolished. But as new territories were being developed and they wanted to have free, low-cost labor to pick cotton and to pick tobacco, then they started doing this whole thing where they wanted to create states that permitted slavery versus states that didn't permit slavery.
But also there was like the Black Panther Party when that was created. That was like a different form of like the Republican Party.
Really? Okay.
Yes, it was like in there, it was sort of connected, but more in favor of the needs of African Americans during that time, back in that. So it's like, it's all crazy to me. At the end of the day, I say vote for who best represents you. I can't stress it enough. We see everything that's going on. We hear everything that's going on. I mean, come on, the dude that's running to try to get the Black vote is making gold sneakers. I can't. But you know what? I can't talk about the presidency anymore. Let's get away from that.
And so that's a really good reason why the history doesn't matter, because there have always been honest people on both sides. Like if you could have Abraham Lincoln as a Republican, that has no connection to today. In
No,
fact, even people who were Republicans under Ronald Reagan, it's not the party of Ronald Reagan anymore. It's not the party of John McCain anymore. It's a
and it,
different party that has gone so far to the right that there are people who are legitimate Republicans and the party doesn't reflect them anymore. I worked early voting yesterday, and a very nice man came in to vote. He happened to have been a Republican, so we printed out his primary ballot,
mhm.
and he looked at it and he was in shock because there were 4 names on the ballot, and he said he could not bear to vote for a single one. So today, the Republican ballot has Vivek Ramaswamy, Chris Christie, Nikki Haley, and Donald Trump. And he said he did not want to vote for any of those people. And I said, well, you're free to write in whoever you want because I want you to have your voice. I don't want you to feel like you're denied. And apparently he must have really wanted to vote for the Democratic candidate. And he didn't understand that his party affiliation didn't allow him to do that. And so he wanted us to just tear up his ballot. And I was like, oh, no, we can't do that. We have to write spoil on it because every piece of paper in that room is accounted for.
Absolutely.
But
Especially during
he was
this.
a man who I'm sure in his heart, he believes in the Republican values that he grew up on. Maybe he's fiscally conservative, all those things, but he did not feel that the candidates currently represent him. So that's hard. And I'm
That's
hoping there are not Democrats who feel the same way. I'm hoping there are Democrats who feel like, yes, maybe we have the head of our ticket is maybe a little older than anybody would like to see. But if he is representing our values and he's keeping the platform promises from 3-4 years ago, and if I can honestly say that my life is better today than it was, let's say 5-6 years ago, then I'm going to say I'm still riding with Biden. I'll tell that to anybody who asks me.
And you know what? I'm riding it out. Well, no, I'm not riding it out that much because right now we know we have the 2 people, and honestly, age has nothing to do with it to me. They're both old. Simple as that. They're both old.
Yeah. So that can't be. We can't have an ageist opinion because I know people who are elderly who have great wisdom, and I know people who are young who are just like goofy and keep their head closed to learning things.
Facts. And honestly, if I could do a write-in for president, I would write in Barack Obama. But okay, so that's my personal opinion because both of the 2 candidates now they kind of shake. I don't know.
Right now I think they're all palling around. I think tonight you and I are having this chat and we're missing out on being with President Barack Obama, President Bill Clinton, President Joe Biden, with a little touch of Stephen Colbert on the side. So what a night that is at the Radio City Music Hall.
Oh, wow. They're there tonight?
They're all there together tonight. Solidarity.
Yes, I rock with it. We'll go to local because then we can go into state. I don't want to really talk too much more on presidency. We'll get to it. I just can't.
Okay. I think we talked ourselves out.
Yeah, I'm over it. I'm over that. I'm over that right there. Let's talk about local elections. Because people don't realize they don't, like we talked about how they jump. Oh, I don't vote for the local. I go for presidential or whatever. Not seeing the importance of how the local elections directly affect and impact our lives.
Directly.
Do you feel like the community? I feel, and you do, but they need to understand the importance of focusing on the local elections.
So let's say we talked about the whole thing about, thinking globally, acting locally. So our local elected officials really can't do much in terms of something that's like the big decider for me in most elections is, okay, who's pro-choice? Who's going to defend the rights of, my fellow sisters, my daughters, someday if I ever have a grandchild, I
Right.
want everybody's rights protected.
Exactly.
So our local elections really don't do that,
They don't do that.
except for right now, this year, we have an election for our state Senate. Now, as a Democrat, I'm happy that we have a Democratic supermajority. I know a couple of years ago, when there was a different majority in Albany, we couldn't get Roe codified in New York. We couldn't get it. We had to pass the reproductive RHA. So it was the Reproductive Health Act. That happened the first day that our Democratic majority was sworn in. We got that passed. So now that Dobbs' decision overturned Roe, and they're saying, well, let the states decide, New York is
Yeah.
safe because we passed the Reproductive Health Act. So
But
if
the fact that which goes to the federal level, the fact that Roe versus Wade was overturned is mind blowing to me, because I never thought that I would see that. The fact that these people, and I'm not even just because they're like sheep to me. They just follow a leader. They're blind and they're just following, following their shepherd. They're just going. The fact that somebody can tell me what to do with my body, and you look at their lives, like look at them, how they live and whatever they believe in, or they don't know the circumstances of why a woman would choose to terminate a pregnancy. They don't understand, or they don't care. They don't care.
They don't care because there's that old joke about, what happens to the dog when he catches the bus. So
but how many of them had secret ones? Like that's
how many of them had absolutely. So how many people in their private lives believe in choice? And how many of them, even if let's say they decide, okay, that's not for me,
right?
How dare they make a decision for somebody else? And what's even worse is, let's say if they understand, but still pretend they don't understand. Like you talk about a tragedy like an ectopic pregnancy. Now, an ectopic pregnancy, that's when the fetus is implanted in the fallopian tube. Right. And your fallopian tube is like this little thing, so you certainly can't be gestating a baby in there.
Right. Mama's gonna die.
A woman who is not taken care of medically when she has an ectopic pregnancy, if that ruptures her fallopian tube, she can die.
Yeah.
Or if somebody is having like a slow miscarriage and the fetus is in the process of dying, so that dead tissue starts to get infected and she could get sepsis. So all these things, and for somebody to say, no, my religious beliefs are being cast on you and I want you to do what I think I would do. Well, guess what? If that person had a wife who was having an ectopic pregnancy, or if it was her herself, I'm sure she'd want to be rushed to the doctor and get the best of care. So it's not fair.
No, it's not, because they those people that are saying all of that, like you said, if their family members were in a situation, they would think differently. Or if they were ones out there, because I'm sure a lot of them got side chicks, side pieces or whatever, and then something comes up, oh, we can't have this because I can't have this coming up in my background, so it's a lot. But at the end of the day, that decision is between me and God.
That's all. Period. And nobody knows what they would do.
Nobody knows. And it's not an easy decision. That's the problem. They take it like women just all willy-nilly go and make this decision. No, that's some women, it is truly, they have conditions. It could be a heart condition or whatever, that the toll of pregnancy will take on your body, their body can't take it.
Right.
So people are telling them, you have no choice. You have no choice. You have to go through this and die. And then who's going to take care of that baby? See, they're not looking at that.
Not looking at that. Or the opposite. Let's say, this whole IVF craziness. I've had friends who, had the sorrow of not being able to conceive when they wanted to. And I know people who have gone through the pain and sorrow of having, IVF and different fertility treatments. Could you imagine all the grief that they're putting these people through? Like sometimes you even hear like a military person, maybe, they have some frozen embryos because they're afraid after they serve, what if they can't conceive when they come back? So all these different things where they're putting people through this misery is just not fair.
It's not
This
fair.
morning there was something on the news, and I forget if it was a little girl. She was like, I forget now if she was 10 or 13, and she was pregnant because she was raped, and she didn't tell her mother about it. And the mother noticed she was starting to get more and more withdrawn. And then eventually the truth came out. And by the time the truth came out, there was a real problem because the doctors around her were too afraid to intervene in case they get arrested. And so now you got this poor little girl. Number one, she was raped, which is a horror. But number two, she's, I forget if it came to be that she was in the process of carrying it to term, but I just can't even go there. My mind, I've known so many sweet little girls, I can't go there.
It's crazy. Okay, let's go to local elections. Let's talk about how something significantly changed in our community due to elections, like the power of the local government. And when I say change, let's talk about that beautiful block vote. For people that don't know what a block vote is, the block vote, because people, let me tell you, people out there, because I'm going to say, and I didn't know this until the other day. I thought he's a friend of mine, is on the Town of Fallsburg board. I'm not naming names, for people that don't know. Up until the other day, I'm thinking he is in position because he ran uncontested. I'm thinking that he's there. I know how the block vote changes things. For people that don't, you have the write-ins and people choose who they want in position. And I found out that my friend was no longer on the board, and someone that many people probably never even heard of is in position because he was written in by a block vote of people who don't live here all year round. But their needs are met.
This is a real serious thing. So
and it's not just here in Sullivan County. It's not just Sullivan County. That block vote is everywhere, you guys. Pay attention.
So what we want to be respectful about is to say that in certain communities, they are not monolithic.
But so, like I'm saying, it's not just Sullivan. This thing happens, and it's not just with that community. We don't know where it is in other different groups, different communities, but it's dominant here because we're here and we see it.
Right.
And I know it's
so let's say if I have a friend who's Hispanic, I can't make assumptions how a Hispanic person votes because Hispanic people are not a monolith. You have to find people where they live and find out what their needs are. And you could say the same thing about people of color. People of color are not a monolith. You've got people who vote all kinds of different ways and they have different lived experiences. So that's the thing. But in certain religious communities, they may be a monolith if they are a low information voter and they trust leadership to guide them how to vote. Now, if that person has integrity and they're thinking about the needs of their people, like let's say if it's a community that gets a lot of public assistance, so you might say, okay, which politicians are going to make sure that we have a good social safety net so that everybody has insurance, everybody has enough food, everybody has affordable housing. But what if you get somebody corrupt who just, has some kind of need for power, some favors, whatever, and then all of a sudden they start telling their people, okay, this is how everybody's going to vote, and I'm going to order an absentee ballot for you, and you're going to be at a certain place at a certain time, and you're going to sign your absentee ballot, and I will either tell you how to vote, or I will fill it in for you, or I will have a rubber stamp pad with some write-in name pre-written, stamped in, and this is how we're going to vote. And then all of a sudden, needs are not being met. So let's look at this on a local level.
Right.
It was very important to us last year because our legislative body, that's the
Yes.
legislators in the county, had become very toxic, and there was a lot of incivility. And so a lot of things needed to change. And so as a Democratic committee, we had a coordinated campaign, and we made sure that the majority was flipped. So one person who's a good person on your show, Kat Scott, she's on the Health and Human.
Kat.
I
said shout out, meaning screaming her out.
That's right. So Kat Scott is on the Health and Human Services Committee.
But wait, you guys, let's give a little bit about Kat. She I met Kat during COVID, when they decided to have this secret meeting about the Sunset, the care center.
Right, the care center, yeah.
They were trying to sell it quickly, like the way they were doing, they were moving swiftly. And Kat put it on social media. She rallied everybody to come to this meeting, and Kat was just a regular person.
Exactly. A regular working person like any of us.
But her mother was in the care center, and it was going to affect the care of her mother. Kat got out there, and now, fast forward 4 years, she's a part of our legislature.
She's a part of our legislature. So that's the ultimate in grassroots activism, where that's how she got to be known. That's how she got to be respected. So now that she sits on this committee, like she's the chair of Health and Human Services. So I watched the meeting last Thursday. I didn't get to watch today's yet, but I watched last Thursday. And here's an interesting thing that came up that affects all of us is the committee is debating when the summer camps open this year, what is going to be the regulations in terms of vaccinations. So we know during COVID, that was a real hot topic, that they didn't want camps to open if there were going to be like terrible COVID outbreaks.
Right.
So the new issue that they're debating is, what about measles vaccinations? Now, I'm going to guess that when you were raising your children, you had to get measles, mumps, that whole range of shots.
Yeah.
So that's what we had to do when our kids were in school, like in the 90s, whatever. And so by the time 2000 came around, measles was virtually eradicated. So that doesn't mean it was impossible to get measles, but there was so few measles that nobody had it. And so people started slacking a little bit on getting their vaccinations. So now we're at a place in 2024 where all of a sudden multiple states throughout the United States, including New York and New Jersey, are now experiencing measles outbreaks. And so there's a whole question before the camps open, are they going to make sure that the children have measles vaccinations?
Okay.
So let's say a kid comes up and they're not vaccinated and they develop measles. It could spread within their whole bunk. It could spread to their counselor, who may, go shopping at ShopRite or some of the local stores. And if it's the kind of camp where maybe the parents live in a bungalow and they're in a camp on the property, then we could have a health crisis.
Right.
And it's very important. And I know that there are people who were involved in the religious bloc vote who were saying, oh, you don't need to pay attention to this. Don't pay attention to camps. You have an opioid crisis. Why don't you just keep your eyes on opioids and let us do whatever we want in the camps? Now, I feel like that's really dangerous.
That's really selfish, actually. It's selfish, and you're not thinking about anybody but yourself. You're not thinking about the locals. I'm a local. I'm a regular person. You're a regular person that lives here or you're around. You're not thinking about our seniors or people with our compromised immune systems.
Right. Measles could kill a person like that. It's not just you get a rash and you're done.
No,
it's you have respiratory problems. And if somebody's already suffering from long COVID or whatever, that could take them out.
Can't fight that. And I know she will. She's a fighter. She has proven herself to be that.
All right, but she can't do it alone because she only
can't.
has one vote. So I'm going to say, everybody who's watching, reach out to your legislator, see what they're thinking about this, and
Right.
let them know what you're thinking, because the whole idea of having a legislator is that they represent us. And
And
if some people got elected because everybody was alarmed what was happening in terms of care getting
right.
worse at the senior center, then maybe we need to see if everybody feels that they want to honor the promises that they made when they were running, and let's make sure we have better care at the senior center.
And that's the thing. People don't realize that they can call and email their legislators. That's what they're there for.
Right. If you
Get your
go to
calls.
the Sullivan County website, there's
Yeah,
a listing
all their
for your
numbers.
legislator. It
Right.
tells you everybody who is your legislator. There's a little picture of them. I hope everybody has their picture, and I haven't checked. But I know that everybody's phone number is there. So at the very least,
Hey,
you
Chris.
can call and you can have a conversation with your
And
legislator. That's what they're
that
there
should
for.
be with in any state, since I'm all over the place. In any state, like I have the voter lookup here. I told people they can remove New York if you're not New York, and probably I don't know, but I would think because it's a government thing. Like if they're New Jersey, just put elections.nj.gov or
I know there are
GA.
national
Yeah.
sites. I'd have to look up, like, for example, there's an organization, I think their name is something like We All Vote. So let's say I gave you the one that's good for New York State. That'll tell
Right.
you absolutely, are you registered in New York
In New York
State?
State. Right.
But if somebody is watching this and they're in another part of the country, I wish I had the exact thing, but I think it's called We All Vote. If you go to We All Vote, then it's got a drop down to take you to your state,
Your
and it's
state.
got all the links for your state.
Right. So you guys go and look, make sure. So because you don't want to go out there and vote. Well, think you're voting and you're not on the you can't do anything. But
And let's if you don't mind, let's talk about the little sad story that you and I were discussing the other day, which is a friend of mine was very recently temporarily homeless. And because she was temporarily homeless, the little yellow postcard that the Board of Elections sends out to let you know where your polling place is, she didn't get it. Now, people can miss getting that yellow
yes,
postcard for all kinds of reasons. In her case, she was temporarily homeless.
right.
But it could be that, maybe there's your postmaster is on vacation for the week, and where, your regular postmaster knows what box to put it in, this one didn't, because, some people have their street address listed, all those different things. At any rate, here was a person who did not get her mail. Her postcard went back to Board of Elections. Board of Elections made the assumption that she had moved away, and so they took her off the voter list. Now, that's very sad. Now, once you find out that you've been taken off the voter list, in most cases, all you have to do is fill out that little, voter registration form and get yourself re-registered.
But
But
people don't know that until some people
right.
don't know
If
it
you don't
until they
check
go
your
into
voter
vote.
registration before election day, then you might go to the polls and then
Right.
it's too late, because there's different deadlines.
Now, in what ways can the voters better inform themselves about the local candidates and their platforms? Instead of just seeing the pictures, like I tell people, don't just go by the pictures. Know your candidate. Know who they are. Like I look people up. Like I told you before, I don't just vote for people who somebody told me to vote for. I need to know you, and then I'm going to dig a little bit deeper, because the forefront looks really good, but once you dive a little bit deeper, and we're gonna not gonna name some people, once you really dig deep into their background, it's dirty and shady. I would never vote for them.
Yeah, and some people, they have paid staff who make sure they have a shiny, clean image.
Yeah.
And so there's like a certain amount of posturing that happens. So let's say a big local issue was when we lost Head Start. Like nobody saw that coming. All of a sudden, one day, Head Start was closed.
That was
and
crazy.
The children had trouble. The parents had to scramble.
Yeah,
and all the workers there, pardon?
Lost their jobs. I said the child care, wasn't it like over 300 plus kids?
Yeah, it was a big number between the kids and the displaced workers who didn't know where their next paycheck is coming from. They didn't know how they were going to make rent. They didn't know how they're going to pay for food.
And
So,
but
you know,
we're also put into that, you have the kids that don't have school, they don't know where they're going to go, the workers, but then you have the parents of the kids who's dependent on Head Start. So it was a whole mess. It affected everything.
absolutely. And so you
Yes.
had certain people who were posturing, like I know we're in the congressional district CD19. So we have this guy, Mark Molinaro, who hardly ever comes to Sullivan County unless maybe he's only with people who, love him and cheer for him and donate money to him. But I don't see him doing town halls like when we had Antonio Delgado, who made sure he did during his term. He had
He was
like, I'm
everywhere.
going to say like 65 town halls. I don't know any town
He
halls
was everywhere.
that Delgado is, I'm sorry, that Molinaro has. But I know that when Head Start closed, Molinaro, that's federally funded. So Molinaro was doing a lot of finger pointing, a lot of blaming. But, what happened? How fast did he act? How fast did he do things? So you have to watch the difference between what somebody says versus what they do.
So
So
what would
there's
have been
that.
his role? What would have been his role with Head Start?
Well, so he talks about needing better oversight. So I don't know at what point people knew something was going on. Like you hear gossip in the neighborhood where people say, oh, you had all these board members who quit and they complained. I don't know what's supposed to happen when board members quit and they all, have complaints and nobody's following up on it. But
Okay.
I would have liked to have seen, like, if I were queen of the world and I had access to emergency funding, I'd find out how I could get some emergency funding and open up some kind of, interim program immediately. And everybody was like, oh, be patient, be patient. All right, well, if I'm a single mother and I'm counting on Head Start for safe childcare for my child during the day, what,
Right.
how long are you going to tell me, oh, just be patient, be patient?
Oh, wow. Right.
So these are important things. These are how often a representative, so, we have all the different layers. So I mentioned before about making sure that we have a good state senator so that what's happening in Albany is good. We've been blessed having Aileen Gunther as our assembly member
Yes.
for
She's
20 years.
amazing.
She's
Aileen.
so accessible. She's
Yeah.
got an office right,
She's
in
everywhere.
Monticello.
Yeah.
So we know that she's retiring. And so a person who worked with her in the assembly when she
Okay.
was a young attorney is Paula K. Drapkin. So Paula K. is going to continue having an office here in Sullivan County. I'm imagining she's going to have an office in Middletown so she can be at reach for her constituents and she can act for us. But then you have this guy, Mark Molinaro. He's our congressman. CD19 is this huge, crazy district. I don't know how often he dips into his congressional office in Liberty, and I don't know how he knows our needs, and I don't know how he can represent us if we have a problem. Now, if you have all this polarization and tribal behavior when it comes to different parties, and somebody thinks that compromise is a dirty word, and so they won't compromise and they only vote the way their party votes and they put
That's
party
crazy.
over country,
Yes.
nothing good is going to happen for us. Our tax bill is still going to be due, but we're not going to get the services that we need.
No. This Mark Molinaro, as you were talking about him, at first I'm like, who is he? Who is he? Then I'm like, okay, I remember him. I know who he is now. I know.
Yeah, he's one of the people who supported this Michael Johnson, who's known to be an election denier. And I guess there was some kind of comment about, oh, I owe you one, bro, because he was, Mark Molinaro was very supportive of Johnson.
Yep, they follow that party, the party over everything else. Yeah. But it's not the same. It doesn't seem though like the Republican Party really is the same party of yesterday before the era, because we're not saying names, before the era, it seems
Right.
like it's different. You had that Republicans, and then you have Republicans. Because I do hear Republicans talking about how they are not happy with the way things are going, but they're
Wait,
so
you look at a woman
loyal.
like Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney, who is the daughter of former Vice President Cheney, she was as conservative and Republican true as you could imagine. And if she is saying that she no longer represents her party,
Not the
and
same.
just because she dared to tell the truth and investigate, her own party censured her, and she couldn't get voted back to the seat that she'd been holding in her own state. So that tells you a lot about how things have shifted, and they really need to shift back. I heard a great quote the other day, how you talk about the difference between a pendulum and a wrecking ball. So it's one thing between a pendulum swinging gently versus if it starts to swing too wildly and it just starts, wrecking everything in its arc.
That's totally what's going on. That explains that person very well. Very well. He's a wrecking ball. It's crazy. Look, for people, because we have 14 minutes. We have 14 minutes. So we have to hit. We didn't talk about the Planned Parenthood thing yet, right? But before we get into that,
oh wait, I know what I wanted to talk about.
Wait, before we talk about that, wait, before we talk
all right,
about
I'm giving a little appetizer, a little foreshadowing.
Remember that right there. People need to understand why voter registration is the first critical step in participating in our democracy, and what are the common obstacles in voter registration. Because we know that during Wrecking Ball's time, that's what I'm calling Wrecking Ball. During Wrecking Ball's time, they did everything for voter suppression. There was so much voter suppression. So what is critical first steps for people to participate, to make sure that they're able to register? You shouldn't have to be able to register if you are you're
So the criteria to register are very simple. You have to be over 18, and they've made laws, they've changed laws a little bit so that now you can pre-register. So let's say when you're 16, you can take care of it then. You can't vote until you're 18, but at least you can do the paperwork. So, if you get all busy, get a new romantic situation and you forget to register, you're pre-registered. Or if you're 17 and you're going to be 18 by the time the election happens, you can vote. So you have to be a citizen.
Right.
So any talk about, undocumented people are voting? No, undocumented people are not voting because they're not citizens.
And it's not just undocumented people, because as we're going back to Wrecking Ball's time, they were trying to take away the older African-American vote, because some of the older people, they didn't have like photo IDs and different things like that, because they didn't have birth certificates, because in his story, some people didn't even know their own true birth dates.
Right.
So it's like it's more than that, y'all. Y'all need to pay attention, be awake. So you just need to be a citizen.
So you have to be a citizen, you have to be 18, and you need some kind of government issued ID. So let's say if somebody has their Social Security card, then you need to be able to put down your Social Security number. If you have a driver's license, you need to be able to put down your driver's license. So, those are the primary things, like what's an obstacle? Okay, how does somebody identify themselves? How can somebody prove their citizenship? But, in most cases, hopefully that can happen. I'm sure if somebody has the ability to travel and they can go to the Board of Elections, hopefully they can either call Board of Elections and say, what's the step that I do if I don't have my Social Security number and I don't have a driver's license? What are the steps in Sullivan County? But, let's say you have one of those things, because that's what it shows, like if you look at the voter registration, it's just like a single long sheet of paper. You just put down your name, your address, your mailing address, whether or not you want a party, and they do not obligate you to have a party. So
Right.
even though I'm so active in the Democratic Party, when I'm giving somebody a voter registration form, I
Right.
don't,
It's
you
their
know,
decision.
I don't try to influence how they
Yeah,
go.
I
In
do.
fact, a lot of times I don't even look. Like I intentionally try not to look
Right.
to see if they
Right.
want to be a Democrat, a Republican, or if they want to be,
Mhm.
blank.
Right.
That's up to them. I just want to see people vote.
Right. And it's very, you have to vote, because if you don't vote, somebody's voting for you.
Right?
Meaning,
Somebody's
right
taking your
now,
voice.
they're taking it. And I may not agree with a lot of things that I see, but at the end of the day, oh, I am going to vote. That's how I can talk so much junk, because at the end of the day, I did cast my vote. My person may not have won, but nobody's going to steal my vote. Too many people died for me to be able to have this right.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
we're going to get ready to your thing, but one more thing. Are there registration drives here? Do we have those?
Yes. There's like National Voter Registration Day. There are pop-up voter registration.
Okay.
If you go to your library, I always see a stack of registration forms at the library. I know I mentioned that I was working early voting yesterday in Liberty at the Public Health Center. And so there was a janitorial person who was walking by. And so I tried to snag her. Excuse me. I was asking her, "Oh, have you voted yet? Would you please vote?" And so she said, "Okay." And so she came in, and sure enough, because she had moved from one town to another, she had gotten purged off. And I said, "Here, I have a voter registration form. If you fill it out, we will make sure it gets to the Board of Elections." And so it's too late for her to vote in this primary, but at least I know her new address now will cover her so that she can vote, whether she's going to vote. There's going to be another primary in June. And then, of course, we've got the big election coming up in November.
Now, when is the cutoff for the big election? People can still register now, right? And be
Oh,
able
yes.
to, okay.
Absolutely.
So, you guys
So
out there,
it's so lenient now that for this presidential election that's going to happen, like the primary, that's April 2nd, you
okay,
could register up until March 23rd. So
okay.
I don't want to say that so procrastinators
No, get it
procrastinate.
done before you forget.
Yeah. So
Now,
if
remember.
you do it like sometime during April or May, then you should be able to vote in June, in the June primary.
Okay.
If your party has a contest, it could be that there's an endorsed candidate. Like I mentioned, for the Congress, I'm supporting Josh Riley. To the best of my knowledge, nobody is challenging Josh Riley. We feel that Josh Riley will be on the Democratic line come November, and I hope that's who people vote for. Another woman, I mentioned the state Senate, so that's Michelle Frazier. I hope Michelle Frazier, from what I've heard, she doesn't have any contests, so I hope she'll be on the ballot come November.
And people don't be blinded by if it's uncontested. Do not be blind. We are seeing and feeling what happens when those write-ins.
Right. When there's low voter turnout, it doesn't take much to flip an election with a surprise write-in candidate.
Yes.
So, you and I talked about like certain judge races where if it's low voter turnout, if people like, a judge isn't a big sexy job, I'm not paying attention to that, then you could be surprised that somebody may be more biased than you'd like just gets written in.
And you're like, how did he become, or how did she become judge? Yeah, you didn't vote.
That's the thing. So everybody has to vote.
You have to vote.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about.
So you asked a question before. I don't think we ever touched on it. How do people find out? So you can read people's social media so that
okay. All right.
So that you get more familiar with them. But if there's a time where they're speaking in person, that's when the mask comes off. when somebody is speaking in person, and that's where you get your sense of how you connect
Yeah,
to them.
right.
Are they genuine? Are the words in their mouth comfortable? Or were they just given some talking points? You know, like if somebody
But you
says,
can't
oh, I'm
tell.
here for Head Start, but
Yeah,
then you find that they voted against, like, you know, some funding that would have given more money to schools, something crazy like that.
crazy. That's true, because when you're in somebody's presence, you can feel them, and you can watch their body language and different eye move. Oh yeah, they're shady. You can tell everything in person.
Yeah. So it's always best if you see the person, you know,
Yeah.
in real life. So you
Uh-huh.
want to make sure they're coming to your district. Now, because I tend to be a little bit wonkier, one thing that I will do if somebody's an incumbent, I will look up their voting record, whether it's their voting record in Albany or their voting record in Congress, and see, okay, if there's a
Can
bill,
anybody do that? Can anybody do
everybody
that?
can do that. Everybody can do that. So if there's a bill that you like the sound of, so let's say, for example, I remember Kirsten Gillibrand was in town about a year or two ago talking about PACT because she was all for making sure that our veterans have more health care services.
Okay.
Because a lot of times they have to wait too long, they're denied, they don't have enough preventative testing. And so they're like, they have an advanced illness before it's even detected. So let's say, for example, you favor the PACT Act because you know, there are people in your life who are veterans and you want to make sure they're well cared for. So you can go and look up that bill, find out who is a sponsor, who is a co-sponsor, and then who voted for it.
Oh, okay. All right. That's yeah, I didn't know that.
That's like a deep dive in
That's
wanting
deep.
to
Yeah,
find out. But that's the
didn't
kind
know
of thing
that.
that I like to do. I like to really see, okay, you're telling
Yes.
me you're for this.
Right.
Are you for this?
Right.
What did you do when we needed you?
Yeah, you can
So,
say anything.
you know what? And here's where I can segue into the ERA.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's talk about that. Tell
Good.
people what
So
the ERA stands for.
the ERA is the Equal Rights Amendment. So
Okay.
this year in November, after you're done voting for all the good
It's on the
people on the
back. It's on the
right,
back.
you're going to flip it
Tell
over
everybody, flip that
and
thing
know
over.
this on the back.
And let me
Now,
write this
in
down,
the
the ERA.
past, we've had propositions that were so convoluted and crazy that, like, is it supporting a ban? Is it supporting lifting the ban? Is it this? And you couldn't tell which answer was yes and which answer was no. Like, if I vote yes, am I for it? If I vote yes, am I against
They
it?
are confusing. It is confusing.
We're
It really
trying to
is.
keep the Equal Rights Amendment
Okay.
to be written in plain, simple language. But what people want to know is the Equal Rights Amendment is not something that happened 50 years ago, because I think we thought New York is such a progressive state. Surely we must have the Equal Rights Amendment. No, we have to vote on it. So the Equal Rights Amendment is designed to decrease discrimination. And it tries to decrease discrimination in all aspects. So we're not talking just about gender. We're not talking just about color. We're talking about all the different ways that people can get discriminated against. Like it could be somebody is trans. We want to make sure that trans people aren't discriminated against. Somebody may not be documented. We want to make sure that somebody can't be discriminated against just because of their citizenship. We want to make sure that if somebody is in the LGBT,
their hair, you can't be discriminated, because Black women used to be discriminated against their hair. So that's why they have the Crown Act. New York is a part of has a lot of states you wouldn't believe don't have the Crown Act. That's a discrimination against Black women, how we can wear our hair, our natural state. How crazy is that? I could not get a job because I have cornrows in my hair. So that's part of the Equal Rights Act. You can't discriminate against that.
And so even though everybody knows it's wrong to discriminate, sometimes if somebody wants to discriminate, they can be sneaky about it.
Oh, yeah,
like I can put a job in the paper, and then if you come and, you know, ask for the job and you're a person of color, I can say, oh, I'm sorry, the job got filled, sorry.
Right. Or you can't live here. Oh, somebody else just took that apartment. Or
and then you see it in the newspaper the next day. So the ERA closes up those loopholes. It even closes up a loophole about your pregnancy outcome. So you can't fire somebody or not hire somebody just
Correct.
because they had an unfavorable pregnancy. Like, maybe they miscarried and you're like, oh, she
But yeah,
was
but they
pregnant.
wouldn't
How
know
come
that.
she's
Why
not
would they?
pregnant anymore?
They would terminate you for that?
Somebody who wants to be
Somebody.
sneaky can find
Yeah.
different excuses, and it just makes it harder for them to have some of those tricky excuses. So
But
the reason
that's on the ballot this year.
it's on the ballot, and
Okay.
the answer is going to be yes. It's going to
Okay,
be
so
voted so that it's going to be worded so that if you support the ERA, then you just vote yes in the bubble.
see,
Hopefully
you
it's going to
guys.
be in plain language.
Yeah, hopefully. And you all heard it right here. So when I'm on there talking about, okay, it's election time, remember to flip over the ballot, because I'm always saying that. Remember to flip.
Yeah.
ERA. We want to vote yes on that. Look, I'm telling y'all what to do. You all should not want there to be discrimination. So you would think that you would vote yes, right?
But then you'd be surprised. Like when I went to Senator Oberacker, because we are in Senate District 51 now. Oberacker is our state senator. He doesn't happen to be part of the Democratic majority. So I went to visit his office and I asked him to support the ERA. And, after I brought all the constituents to his office and we asked him and we let him know this is very meaningful for all of us. After we left his office, the vote was that day. He went on the floor and he voted no. But again, because the Democrats had a majority, it passed. And because it passed twice in 2 consecutive sessions, that's why the proposition is on our ballot. Had it gone down, we wouldn't be able to vote for it this year.
Voted no. Okay, we're going to have another political show because it's 8:01.
Okay.
It's that
we always say, my, that time goes by fast.
It went by so fast. It's crazy. Yeah. We learned a lot tonight. We're going to learn more as time goes on because we're in the early stages. I hate this. We're in the early stages of this. So, I mean, we're not that early because November will be here before you know it. November,
yeah.
Elections will be here before you know it. So you guys, everybody go look up, make sure you're registered. For those that think you're registered, check on that status. For those that aren't registered, because I spoke to someone who said their child, he has a disability. Someone asked if he was registered, and they said no, he wasn't registered because he really can't grasp it, comprehend it. And so I respect the parents for that, because I've seen people register their children with a disability and had them vote for their person. So it's, like that.
I mean, there's always people who want to game the system.
Yeah.
I knew, I have a friend whose mother was in a nursing home, and that woman was liberal her whole life. And the nursing home wanted to register her and arrange it so that her absentee ballot was sent to the nursing home so that they could vote on her behalf. And my friend said, no, absolutely not. Yeah. Because they didn't feel that their home would be respecting her mother's personal choices.
Yeah, because that's disgusting. That's terrible. That's really grimy. People, that's why I don't deal with people too much. I mean, I deal with people.
But that being said, remember, the 2020 election was the most safe and secure election that we ever had. All the election officials know that. So anybody who says, okay, you get, examples here and there of people being shady, right. It was never of enough consequence to change the election, even though somebody wanted, somebody to find 11,000 votes for them.
The wrecking ball. But okay. That is the wrecking ball. So look, we're going to end tonight because it's 8:04. We're going to end tonight's show. Thank everybody for tuning in and, commenting. Those are going to be commenting later. I'm scared to see what you have to say, but I'm excited because we have to have this conversation. It's a difficult conversation. Tomorrow night, you guys, you can catch me. I'm being interviewed. I'm on the show. Freedom Fridays with Apostle Q. it's like talking to myself, talking to her, but on a more spiritual level, because oh my God, I love everything about this woman. I know she's going to dive deep. I don't know where we're going to go, but like I told, I'm open. So this is going to be a heavy hitter conversation. I'm nervous, but I'm excited. So you guys can tune in tomorrow at 7:30. She's on YouTube. She's also on Facebook. Apostle Q, Quinetta. Lord, you're gonna kill me. She was just Quinetta Thomas. Go to her page. You can follow her. I'll be going live on my platforms as well. But that's tomorrow, 7:30. Freedom Friday with Apostle Q. 7:30 tomorrow night. Yours truly is going to be a guest. I'm excited and I'm nervous. So
That should be great.
It should be. It's going to be. It's going to be good. So thank you again, Barb, for coming on.
Thank you so much for letting me share all those things that were on my heart.
And we still got more to share. Oh my God. So I think I'm going to try to get some people on. I think I'm going to get Kat on if she can find
That would be great.
And some
Sure.
other people, just reach out to me. Let's have this conversation. Reach out to me because I don't know who everybody is. Politicians, reach out to me if you want to have this conversation, as long as you're not crooked and disrespectful. Because if you're disrespectful, we're not having that conversation. So, all right. You have a good night, Barb. Everybody, like, share, follow, subscribe. You can catch this show once again next Thursday at 8 a.m. on Zeno FM, which has additional online supports by online radio box. You can catch Culture Shock Radio, which is in Canada, Rockbox Radio, Radio Facero in Mexico, Wapta Music FM, which is in Guadeloupe, Caribbean Islands, Sundays at 12 p.m. Godfidence Radio. But you can catch all this on the VGN app, which is free. You can download it, and instead of looking for all of those radio stations, just download the Village Global Network app, which is free, and you'll be able to hear this. It's different. So people all over the world, 91 plus countries, going to hear about the shenanigans of Sullivan County. So it's what it is. It's what it is. So you all have a good night. I appreciate you, and I will see you next.